There we go. What's up, Wolfden and visitors? Do me a favor. Let me know that you can hear me. Hit the thumbs up button. All that fun stuff. You are welcome to share this video if you want to share it in the community. I think I already did. Talk a little bit about a DEX. So if this video may answer some questions in the night or the dark night community, you're welcome to drop it in there. I'm not going to blow up all those communities right now because I'm tired of looking at them. It is Monday, right? 29th. Fresh off of Thanksgiving. Hopefully you guys had a great holiday. Obviously we launched Dark Knight and all that stuff. So let's do the standard quick glance at the Twitters. What's going on? You see Wolfies is just skyrocketing, as it does. Imagine buying NFT with ETH but only paying 15 cents in gas. Yep, we're going to talk about that. But let me, Wolfden ecosystem continues to blow my mind the more I get into it. I appreciate that. And of course, Dark Knight is partnered with TIN, so you can actually see your holdings here, tin.network. And Wolfsaw did get launched, so we'll talk about all that stuff. Let me see what else we got. This is just quick updates for those of you that don't know. I tweet things as a reminder, and then I just talk about them on video. And then we get into the good stuff. So I'm going to explain a little bit, because what I want to do is I want to help people understand so that they can help others understand. I am not going to go around. Here's the thing. I put it right here. Some people are far better at doing than teaching. Others are far better at teaching than doing. Here's what we don't want. The extreme example. We do not want Elon Musk sitting around in Discord trying to get people to understand what things are so that he can get consensus to move forward. Right? Nothing would get done. That's not how innovation works. So you have to understand that there's certain people, mostly the innovators that you know of, are better at doing than teaching. So the risk is, and there's other people, there's some people that are phenomenal at teaching. They cannot do it themselves, right? Like Bill Belichick probably can't go play quarterback right now. In fact, he never could. However, he is great as a coach, as a good teacher, as a mentor, right? So there are absolutely people that are better at teaching than they are at doing, and they should spend in their space teaching. A lot of times they're like, well, you've never done it, so you can't teach it. But there's a number of Hall of Fame football coaches that never played football, or they didn't do it at a high level, right? Pete Carroll's a great coach. Bill Belichick's a great coach. So you understand that there's to ask doers to teach, right? So anytime somebody comes, in this case to me, and says, explain how this works, the temptation is to explain it to you for validation, right? I want to explain it to you to get consensus that you understand and that I can move forward. However, that is a huge handicap to doers. Do not ask doers to teach. It's not appropriate. You're handicapping the whole entire ecosystem. Similarly, there are teachers that are phenomenal teachers and they're not so great at doing, right? This is intuitive in some spaces, right? Like, especially when somebody has a track record. Nobody says, hey, John Wooden, why don't you go out there and run this play? Duh. He's a better teacher. He's a better mentor, better coach than a player. And that's okay. We have to understand people's gifts and respect them. So a lot of this moving forward, which I'll explain to my members in the den, is I will do what I do. As I'm building things, I will break them down. It's not very likely that I'm going to come back and spend a whole bunch of time teaching people, because the more time I spend teaching, less time I spend doing, less opportunities for everybody. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you guys can learn to respect that in this ecosystem and other ecosystems. And the reason I bring that up is because of this one right here. Okay. This is very, very important. Most prefer the certainty of misery to the misery of uncertainty. And when you are investing in a complex system, right, you have to understand that a lot of times you are making really bad decisions. People make really bad decisions because they rather be miserable and know they're going to be miserable than have an opportunity of being happy but not know what it's going to look like. And everybody goes, oh, that's not me. But you think about You ever stayed in a bad relationship knowing it was going to stay bad, but it was better than being in the unknown? Happens all the time. People prefer the certainty of misery. They rather stay in a situation they know is going to be miserable because it's known, right? The devil you know, than be in a situation that could potentially be better, but it's unknown. Most people will lock in misery and to have certainty that to make sure that they only deal with the expected. I think that's ridiculous. That's okay though. So just remember when you're like, oh no, I'm panicked, I don't understand this. What is the alternative? Go back to what you were doing before. If what you're doing before is acceptable, great. Most of the time we find that what you were doing before was not acceptable. Therefore, yes, the new thing is scary, sure. But if you go back to what you know, and you already know that what you were doing was unacceptable, you are choosing the certainty of misery. And when you choose the certainty of misery, you forfeit the right to complain to me or anybody else. Most people are not willing to accept that. Okay? But I hope that makes sense. I hope that a few of you can wrap your minds around why that's so important. Everybody goes, I don't know about this, because people lack the understanding in certain domains. Like I cannot go into ice hockey, see a play, and be like, yep, this makes perfect sense to me. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Right? So it's not even a matter of capacity or bandwidth or cognitive horsepower. The mistake is thinking that you're supposed to know. Right? Some really smart people fall into this trap because they think they're supposed to know. And if they don't know, then they stay away from it, or they spend all of their time. You know how many people miss the boat on phenomenal opportunities because they're so busy trying to get certainty about it? They spend 10 years trying to understand what Google is, and then they invest, and they miss the 10 years of upside. So, hope that makes sense. You got to catch yourself, and it's okay. It's okay to choose the certainty of misery. I'm not going to judge you, but you don't get to choose the certainty of misery and then complain. It's a choice. Yes, I am going to stay in this bad relationship. I realize it will never get better. At that point, you have no right to complain or bring anybody else down. You can't talk to your parents, your friends, whatever. It's not appropriate to make a choice and bring everybody else down because of it. Okay? My opinion, of course, that's how we operate in the Wolfden. So if you choose, you have to understand that it's about trade-offs, right? I'm gonna explain how a DEX works on this stuff in a minute. It's about trade-offs. People go, well, how do I know this? And what if this? Like, what if this price goes down? Or what if these yields go down? Or what if this doesn't work? And like, those are all valid questions. What is the alternative, though? All we are doing is trying to inform behavior. So if what you were doing before, holding Dogecoin and praying, if that wasn't getting you what you wanted, then you change your strategy. And you can say, well, what if this? What if that? What if? Those are all valid questions. But if you don't change your strategy, then you may be choosing the certainty of misery, and that's on you. Okay? Trump 2020 is just going to keep asking. Anybody can purchase Dark Knight. If you cannot figure out how to join the Wolfden, given the fact that you're watching a video with all of the links in the description, then you probably won't be a good fit in the Wolfden, and that's okay. I just told you where to find it. You can navigate from there. But anybody can buy Dark Knight. It's a DEX. It's like the 5th largest DEX on Phantom right now. Maybe even higher than that. I don't know. It's 4th or 5th largest DEX on Phantom. It's public. Anybody can buy it. They never have to even know I exist. In fact, the more people that buy Dark Knight that don't know that the Wolfden exists, the better. All right. So let's go through the standards here. We like to check the night. We're cruising about 25 million. Again, this will shoot TVL. This will shoot to about 30 million when the market recovers. We have a ton of assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB that are down right now. Hey, price is holding up. Anything over 50-cent night is a money printer. For those of you that know how to use it, you will print money for the rest of your life. If night is cruising, honestly, anything over 25 cents, but we'll say 50 cents because y'all are super sensitive to price action for whatever reason. That's your human mindset. that will show you how. Right? So that's look at Dark Knight. Dark Knight was number 4, I think. Number 5, 4 or 5. So TVL, it vacillates. It goes over 10, under 10, over 10, under 10. Things are right there. Same thing with the price. Anything over 50 cents, you're printing money. It's a different ecosystem, and I've explained that in the town hall. So watch the video before this if you want to kind of understand the difference between Dark Knight, and how I am personally navigating it all. Okay, but let's talk about, well, let's keep going here. Let's get all the announcements out of the way. These are our first 2 Wolfden projects. This is the first one. That's a couple months right there. It's about 125. Right here was about 120. So it's probably 125, 123x from launch. As you can see, there's not a lot of sell pressure. Of course, we did all of this wrong. We are operating the other ecosystems exactly the same. Here's the trick. Nobody stared at the chart. It wasn't until like a couple weeks ago I started sharing these charts. So if you think staring at the chart is the way to help your investment, then you don't quite understand how a market works. You don't quite understand human psychology. That's fine. Stare at your charts. We have enough people that know not to stare at charts, that the price action will take care of itself. Now let's look at this. We didn't launch and go straight up, right? Let this populate here. See, this happens. This is a lot of the market just trying to figure out who we are and what we do and how to use us. This is a lot of the market starting to watch videos and understand what's going on. So a lot of these people started watching charts. But as we learn how to actually use the ecosystem, this is what happens. You can see kind of the exact point when people started figuring out how to use the ecosystem, right? Now, our second project is very similar, right? It serves a different purpose, so the price action is a little bit different. We actually don't want it to go 120x right now. That would not serve the purpose well. But you're going to see the same kind of like, look at that rip. This was a launch. This is what launches look like, right? We never dipped below. This is about 2x pre-sale. So we never dipped below pre-sale. We stayed about 2x above pre-sale. But then this is just more of the market kind of trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Of course, this learning curve was shorter because we already had Wolfies, right? So a lot of these people were in here helping the community understand what's going on. And now we're here. This was the Dark Knight. This was the night launch right around here, right? And then you see we're just going to keep cruising. That's what we do. Those are the first 2 projects. Now, it's important because our other projects, Night, Dark Knight, and Undead, are going to operate the same way. The question is, right, does it happen smoother like Guardian because so many people so quickly understood what was going on, or does it take a little bit longer like Wolfies? Because I'm not going to shove it down your throat. We're not going to pump and dump. The quicker the holder base decides to figure out how to responsibly use this ecosystem, the faster the price becomes irrelevant. Because when the price is irrelevant, people aren't looking to sell. They're not looking at the chart to sell. You can see there's not a lot of sell pressure on either of these. Right? All of these cells are mostly auto compounders. All these buys and sells, those are mostly contracts. So hopefully that makes sense. You kind of get a grasp of like, how do you get control of your own investment? Educate yourself, help educate others. The Wolfden train keeps rolling up. Rofi's guard, still no chill. No. I mean, as long as our ecosystem is valuable to people, the token price will keep going up because it has nothing to do with the token price, right? So Night, Dark Knight. Last announcement. These are live, right? The last 340 out of the 420 are live. There is no limit on buys now. So yesterday, we wanted to get as many people in as opportunity as possible. So there was 1 NFT per wallet. Now there's 100. So you can go buy 100 of them right now. We'll see how fast these sell out. I got to make an announcement later today. But this is one of the 420 rares. The difference here is how many sold yesterday. So if you want to jump on Wolfsaw, I'll do a big announcement and all that stuff. I'm going to let all of the people that are paying attention, like to this video right now, and to the private channels, I'm going to give them a chance to stock up, because our initial mint, is going to be pretty big, and the bunch of people that stock up on these will probably turn a profit really quickly. No promises, never know what's going to happen. Yesterday's the first time we listed something that did not sell out right away, but that's because we put a limit on the wallet, so we knew it wouldn't. All right, so that's Undead. This is an INO. This is a really cool feature for Undead, right? It's just like a NFT mint, but it's done a little bit differently. And just like OpenSea takes 2.5%, Undead takes 3%. Might move it down to 2%, but that all goes to buying back Undead and supporting the ecosystem. So it's a really, I am of the belief that once this ecosystem that there's a lot of tweaks to make to the marketplace, it's going to kind of go berserk. It'll be the OpenSea of Phantom. All right. Now here's a quick refresher on, let's see, 15 minutes. We're 15 minutes in about. Let me check the time. Yeah, 16 minutes in. So 16 minutes in, for those of you, anybody that wants a timestamp or help somebody out, this is Night. Okay, I'm going to use Night because it's a little bit more mature than Dark Knight. It's a little bit older. The way sustainable DEX is built is different than the way most people are building it. So most people are going to build the DEX. Not all, but most DEXs are built like this. They don't have their own liquidity. Right, so they actually use, when you go to exchange, they actually use PancakeSwap. They fork PancakeSwap, and they use Pancake's liquidity, which means PancakeSwap gets all the trading fees. So there's really nothing to support all of this yield or this project. So what they do is they have deposit fees. Notice how all of ours are 0%. That will change in the future potentially, but the core farms, all these cores, which is pretty much everything on here now, is going to stay 0%. Why? Because we have our own liquidity. So you can't trade Polkadot for USDC on here because we don't have liquidity for it. And that's okay. And then they have pools and raids, right? So a lot of times in these pools, you're going to see Bitcoin, BNB, right? And it's going to have a deposit fee. So the way most, not all, but the way most DEXs and farms are making money off of you is not sustainable. It's not good for you. They don't have their own liquidity because it's hard to get liquidity. It's very difficult to get other people to provide liquidity for multiple pairs. And they will put the most appealing farms on here. They'll be like, oh, Polkadot, BNB, and Bitcoin, Ethereum, and blah, blah, they'll just bring as much TVL as possible, and they don't really care if their token price tanks, because they make their money off you depositing your Bitcoin ETH, depositing your Polkadot BNB, right? And then when the token price tanks and you remove it, sometimes they have a removal fee too. So most DEXs that launch and have these huge APRs, you can go, do they have their own liquidity? If not, I personally wouldn't touch it. That's just a heuristic. There's a lot of good options. I don't need to do much homework beyond that. If a DEX doesn't have its own liquidity, I'm not interested in it. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be. It just tells me they don't have a sustainable way of supporting their project. How are they going to make money? Well, there's two ways. They can make deposit withdrawal fees, which means this whole UI, everything, their ecosystem, all the hype, is designed to get you to deposit, remove, deposit, remove, deposit, remove, because that's how they make money. And or they sell their own token, which just tanks your investment because you're getting paid in their token, right? So they're just going to sell it down to nothing. Are there exceptions? Sure, probably. But there's enough opportunity that I don't need to go into all the exceptions. I know that if a farm does not have its own DEX, I don't touch it. Personal decision. If a DEX doesn't have its own liquidity, I don't touch it. For all the reasons I just stated above, okay? Now, if a DEX is sustainable and it's building a real project, it's built like this. You see these multipliers, 60x, 45x, 15x. That is to incentivize people to provide more liquidity to these particular farms. Okay? The reason being, and this is 60x multiplier, so these are all programmed in token emissions. This gets 60 times more tokens per block distributed to this farm. The reason being, these are primary nodes, meaning everything gets routed strategically. So for example, you see guard BUSD. You can trade BNB for Guardian. We do not need guard BNB liquidity, because remember, liquidity is pretty hard to get. Right? Somebody's got to provide a bunch of Guardian and a bunch of BUSD. So you can trade BNB for Guardian because there's a Guardian BUSD and a BNB BUSD, which means when you take your BUSD and trade it for Guardian, it's going to route BUSD to BNB. I'm sorry, it's going to route BNB to BUSD and then BUSD to Guard. There doesn't have to be a BNB Guard liquidity pool for you to trade them. There just has to be a route with a lot of liquidity for it to follow. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Let me give you a quick example. We'll see if BSC cooperates, because it's been kind of a pain lately. But what you can see here, and I'll show you where to look even if it doesn't. So BNB to Guardian. It will show you right down here the route. It goes from BNB to BUSD to Guard. Now this trade only works, and it's only safe, and it only requires low slippage if the route to BNB to BUSD has a lot of liquidity, right? So $4 million, it's plenty. And the route from BUSD to Guard has a lot of liquidity. It's $3,000 right there. Or $3 million, sorry. So does this hopefully that makes sense, is that a DEX is built, a legitimate DEX that actually understands how to build a complex, sustainable ecosystem. They're not going, what farm you guys want to see next? That's hype. That is designed to get a lot of users to deposit and then withdraw so that they can rack up fees. There's no utility. Like asking the community, what farm do you guys want? Actually makes the ecosystem more fragile, right? Here's why. Because all of these farms are kicking out night. They're emitting night. So for us to pay night, right, which can be sold, for us to kick out night, then there has to be, the trade-off is utility. It makes it safer. It makes it so that more trades can be made with less total liquidity pools. Okay, hopefully that kind of helps you understand how this is built. So again, you can trade, let's say you wanted to trade, you got some Bitcoin and you want some BUSD. You can trade that right here, but it's going to go from Bitcoin to BNB using this liquidity pool, and it's going to route the BNB to BUSD through this liquidity pool. So the multipliers are not to create hype or attention or FOMO like other DEXs. It's this, we have to incentivize these the most because it makes trading the safest, the lowest slippage, and the most efficient. There's utility behind every single move. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's why most of these pairs are BNB, but we have some BUSD pairs. The reason we can have BUSD pairs is because we have this guy right here, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Now here's the other thing about liquidity that's been coming up, right? So everything has a purpose, and the timing is very, I know, I get it. You want to put your Bitcoin ETH on here and make a bunch of money. Explain to me how you putting your Bitcoin Ethereum on here, getting a nice APR that you can sell into the ground, how does that help the ecosystem? It doesn't, right? We're not, the way that would work. So the people that cater to that, you might say, well, this project does that. Like, yes, they are raking in on fees. They're trying to get you to make bad decisions. We're not. our game is we have our own liquidity. Okay, we're not using Pancake's liquidity. We're not using any other liquidity. And we have a strategic routing system where everything has a purpose. So yeah, we're willing to give out these emissions. We will give out this kind of emissions because this is what the utility is worth to us. We are essentially paying for function, which is what all businesses and technology since the beginning of time have always done. Like, yes, we will pay this much in order to have this function safely and effectively. If anybody goes, oh, you guys want this really cool farm and it doesn't serve as a node to route through, then it's hurting the project. It's getting a lot of hype, and all of the people that jump into it are probably going to get a lot of fees. The project will make money for that short amount of time, right? In a very, very short amount of time. So that's how a DEX is built. Now, the trading fees, and I'm going over this so that there's content for night and dark night, people like that. Now, the trading fees work like this. If you are providing liquidity to Night BUSD, every DEX has a 0.2% or a 0.3% trading fee. Okay? 0.2 to 0.3. I think Baby Swap might be 0.35. I could be wrong. Check the technical documents. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I'm not attacking them. But there's a 0.2% on Pancake, and there's a 0.2% on Night. I'm pretty sure it's a 0.2% on ApeSwap as well. That 0.2%, when you trade Night BUSD, it takes 0.2% of the Night, it takes 0.2% of the BUSD, and it kicks it back to LP holders. So even without a farm, if something has a lot of volume coming through, you can go to analytics, you can go to overview. You can check specific pairs if you want. You are getting paid in LP for sitting in the LP, even if you're not in a farm. Okay, even if you're not in a farm, so you can check like where's the volume coming through. The top pairs, if you provide BNB BUSD, liquidity holders are getting 0.2% of $4 million over the last 7 days, right? And this is going to go up and up and up. So you see the fees right there. Boom. Right? This got paid back to liquidity providers. And as the volume grows, I think we're number 8 in volume right now. We're above both JetSwap and WaltSwap. Just checked this morning. So as our volume grows, liquidity providers get paid in 2 ways. They get paid a percentage of transactions. So if you're sitting here, you're getting paid in Night BUSD. You're getting paid in Night BNB. That's right. It's very small amounts, but if you're going to sit there for a year, it is significant. I sat in an LP pool, liquidity pool for 5 months, and I just checked, and I put in 10 BNB plus the pair token, and it's 155 BNB plus the pair token right now. That's all fees. There's no farm. So there's already incentive to sit in the farm. Of course, most of these don't get high enough volume for those fees to add up to be super significant, which is why we have farms. Okay? The farms will outpace any kind of impermanent loss or anything like that. So if you're worried about impermanent loss, you've probably done the math, you've probably done calculations, but you haven't used the right math, right? And you're also coming from a place of fear, like and probably a shorter time preference. All that's fine. Just understand that if you're like, oh, but what about impermanent loss? Like, you're not really doing math. You're not using the math that you should be using, or you're on a very, very short time preference. Like, yes, this month Bitcoin might run against BNB, and there might be some impermanent loss, but the reality is I rather have Night, because here's the thing about impermanent loss people don't consider, because they just, most people are very, very short-sighted, and they're not built for wealth, right? They're built for get as much as possible because they're scared. If I hold Bitcoin and I hold BNB and I don't want to pair them because I'm worried about impermanent loss, and then Bitcoin runs and BNB does whatever it does, how do I realize the profit? I sell the Bitcoin, and then what? And then what? I have no buying power. I have cash. That's cool. That's good. But there's no golden goose. if I pair Bitcoin and BNB and Bitcoin runs and there's some impermanent loss, I don't care because I'm generating Night, which I can use in pools and raids and make money forever. So if you're worried about impermanent loss, I totally understand, especially if you got to, like, at the end of the year, you got to pay some bills or something. But I don't think in those terms. I generate a lot of wealth over time for other people and myself. That's where my brain is oriented towards. Yours may not be, and it doesn't have to be, and that's okay. Just understand, to worry about impermanent loss means you don't understand the golden goose. You're trying to get a bigger golden egg, and you're killing the goose so you can get a bigger egg. The problem is, unless that egg solves all of your problems for the rest of your life, you still end up Schitt's Creek without a paddle. This was your paddle. You threw your paddle out the window hoping to get rich tomorrow. You're not required to spend your time with everyone on this education, Nick. Thank you very much. Appreciated. Yep. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand that if you're sitting here going, oh, what about impermanent loss? And what about liquidity? How do liquidity pools work? And yada, yada, yada. Like, those questions are fine. They're fine. You have to understand at some point, when you are letting your fear and short-sightedness try to talk you out of being wealthy. That's a very real conversation. I'm not saying to follow anybody blindly. I don't think anybody should do that. But, again, well, Bitcoin could triple. Well, unless you have $10 million of Bitcoin, it's not really going to solve all of your problems, right? Like, I got $10,000 of Bitcoin and it could go to 30 grand. Like, cool. Then you're going to have $30,000 and you'll be up Schitt's Creek. You have $30,000 and no golden goose. That's very hard for a lot of people to wrap their minds around, because they just think that, man, if I just have this bigger sum of money, it's going to solve my problems. And then you run out of the money and then you're fucked again, right? A lot of people do this. So I'm not worried about, personally, I'm not worried about impermanent loss. I don't worry about what's going to run against what, because I have a solvable problem. And if I can get 71% here, and if I can get I compound this. So if I get my 84% here, I make hundreds of millions of dollars. Hundreds of millions of dollars. So am I really going to worry about what if Bitcoin runs? Because Bitcoin will not run to $100 million for me. It won't. I don't have all my Bitcoin in here. Some of it's in cold storage. But even if Bitcoin did a 5x, I'm looking at maybe $15 million of Bitcoin. It's not $100 million. So the greed, worrying about losing some of this upside, has actually cost me $75 million in upside in the future. My YouTube shows is frozen, but I don't know. So hopefully this makes sense. You kind of understand how a DEX is built. It's very strategic. It's not an accident. None of these farms are just for funsies. And oh no, error occurred. Hopefully you guys can still hear me and see me. I'll wrap this up because my YouTube tells me that we have an error, and I'm gonna jump on with Dire Wolves and Guardians.